Good evening and welcome to Crossroads. Trump's plan to use the latest indictment as a way to expose the evidence of election fraud in 2020 may be crushed by the Justice Department. Former President Donald Trump was indicted last week in Washington on 4 charges. It's alleged right now, at least, that his claims that the election had been rigged, his attempts to litigate based on that, to get dueling electors in place, and then his alleged involvement in the January 6 riots, all of these are being framed as a planned conspiracy. The court case will require prosecutors to prove that Trump did not believe the 2020 elections were rigged, and I'd say it's going to be a hard thing for him to do. Trump's legal team was quick to fire back, saying they would use discovery and subpoenas, and they're going to show the American people every single piece of evidence available, everything they can find, to show why Trump did believe, and still does allegedly, that Biden and the Democrats stole the election. But that plan may have just ended. While the case is still going forward, and we can assume that Trump will still use discovery and still use subpoenas to gain access to all of that evidence, that information is unlikely to ever see the light of day. Not only that, but if Trump talks about rigged elections or January 6th, some of his major campaign discussions, it's possible he could face charges for violating a court order if they go through with this. They found a way to muzzle him, to eliminate some of his main defenses being lobbed against him from both sides of the aisle. Republicans and Democrats actually now both attacking him. And this comes in the form of a protective order. Let me explain. On Friday, Trump wrote on Truth Social, "If you go after me, I'm coming after you." The Justice Department jumped on that. They said it was a threat. Prosecutors requested the U.S. District Court judge in charge of the case issue a protective order. But what's interesting is that that protective order, it doesn't actually protect them from Trump. It doesn't protect them. It protects the evidence in the case from going public. In particular, it prevents that evidence from being shown to the American people. Now, look, I don't know about this. I don't know how stopping the public from seeing evidence resolves an alleged threat from Trump. But that's their claim. They're sticking to it. The prosecutors even laid out why there should be a protective order. And according to AP, they said this. They said that they're going to hand over a substantial amount of evidence to Trump's legal team. And apparently a lot of the information, they say, is sensitive and confidential. Now look, if we go by the official narrative, we've been shown all the necessary evidence on January 6th, all the evidence on election fraud that we need to see. We're told the courts, Congress, they all seem to agree that the official narrative is irrefutable. So why would sensitive or confidential information be harmful? Why would that be a threat? Wouldn't any evidence that hasn't been shown to the public just help their case? And maybe it could even help restore public trust in the institutions. And I'd say, wouldn't that be a great thing right now ahead of the 2024 elections? Well, maybe, unless the evidence shows otherwise. And the real irony here is that if the judge chooses to keep this information hidden from the public, much of the public is going to believe that's the case. On the part of Trump's legal team, they told AP that Trump's Truth Social post was not about the prosecutions. He wasn't threatening them, they say. They say it was in response to the dishonest special interest groups and super PACs. They also claim it represented the definition of free speech. Now, while waiting on the judge's orders, Trump issued some posts condemning Mike Pence, who is going to be allegedly testifying against him and against the judge. And so, given that they used that to call for a protective order, we'll see how it goes. Let me explain. On Saturday, Trump wrote that the former Vice President, Mike Pence, has, quote, gone to the dark side. He refuted one of Pence's main claims and wrote, "I never told the newly emboldened, not based on his 2% poll numbers, Pence, to put me above the Constitution or that Mike was too honest. He is delusional, and now he wants to show he's a tough guy." On Sunday, Trump requested the judge recuse herself and for the case to be moved out of Washington. Trump wrote, "We will be immediately asking for recusal of this judge on very powerful grounds and likewise for venue change out of D.C. And he also said that special counsel Jack Smith, who brought the case, is interfering with the 2024 elections by choosing to prosecute the case right now. And notably, Trump also went viral on Sunday because of a Truth Social post he had condemning Representative Nancy Pelosi. And he wrote, "I purposefully didn't comment on Nancy Pelosi's very weird story concerning her husband," meaning the Hammer Time one. But he said, but now I can because she said something about me with glee that was really quite vicious. I saw a scared puppy, she said, as she watched me on television, like millions of others that didn't see that. I wasn't scared. Nevertheless, how mean a thing to say. Now, Trump, of course, has a reputation for his so-called mean tweets. The question right now is whether he should be able to comment on the case and show his side of the story. Now, when he will inevitably be attacked by establishment news outlets and others on the case. I mean, for context, special counsel Jack Smith, who he's accused of attacking right now, made public, scorching accusations against Trump in the indictment. Should Trump not be allowed to contest that? Pelosi and others have repeatedly attacked Trump. Mike Pence made public comments alleging Trump's guilt. Should he not be able to say otherwise? If it's wrong for Trump to verbally attack them, then is it also wrong for them to attack Trump? Now, maybe they should all have protective orders if that's the case. But the case is actually bigger than just political infighting. It actually has a lot to do with public perception. Let me explain. We're told right now that Trump has damaged public trust in the election system. We're told that January 6th represents a type of radicalization of Trump's base, the MAGA extremists. So why would a full disclosure of evidence be a bad thing? And there are also alleged problems in the case brought against Trump as well. Special counsel Jack Smith was just called out for problems in his classified document case against Trump in Florida. Hugo Lowell of The Guardian just reported that the Florida judge says Smith's special counsel used an out-of-district grand jury to continue to investigate and/or to seek post-indictment hearings. Many others have noted examples of double standards. In fact, videos have been going viral on X, formerly known as Twitter, of Democrats denying the 2016 elections, calling for the Electoral College to switch votes. The public now knows many other officials took classified documents. We know that the Trump-Russia scandal was a giant hoax. We know the Hunter Biden laptop was real. Both of these issues were used to interfere in previous elections. So why is Trump being treated differently? Why are other officials not facing similar charges? Well, look, the perception is that the American justice system is being weaponized politically. It's not just, for domestic politics and so on. It's also damaging as well for foreign affairs. Take, for example, Secretary of State Antony Blinken's recent condemnation of Russia for convicting opposition leader Alexei Navalny. Now, the comments in the post are filled with ridicule, suggesting that the Biden administration is no different on the prosecution of Trump. They're comparing it to Russia. And the assumptions aren't without warrant that the Biden administration had a hand to play in these prosecutions. New York Times, for example, back in April of 2022, they reported that, quote, Mr. Biden confided to his inner circle that he believed former President Donald J. Trump was a threat to democracy and should be prosecuted. And while New York Times claimed that Biden did not say this directly to Attorney General Merrick Garland, it did say that Biden wanted, quote, Mr. Garland to act less like a ponderous judge and more like a prosecutor who was willing to take decisive action over the events of January 6th. And statements like this weren't all private either. In fact, Biden even made public statements along these same lines. Watch.
Conversation was tied to your predecessor, who is about to launch another campaign. So how do you reassure them, if that is the reason for their questioning, that the former president will not return, or that his political movement, which is still very strong, will not once again take power in the United States?
Well, we just have to demonstrate that he will not take power by, if he does run, making sure he, under legitimate efforts of our Constitution, does not become the next president again.
And there's evidence as well of more direct involvement from the Biden administration in the prosecutions against Trump. It suggests the Justice Department has at the very least been aided by the White House in its pursuit of indictments. Hey everyone, Josh Philipp here. Our values are being assaulted every day by lies that the mainstream media perpetuate, and it's put our country really on the edge of a knife. No one really knows whether they're going to make it or not. If you love your country and your freedom like we celebrate, well, I'm going to give you the number one thing you can do to ensure this country stays that way. Now, you probably feel that that's impossible. Maybe you think the situation is just too far gone. I used to feel the same way until I joined Epoch Times. Now, started this show, of course, and saw the power the truth can bring to our growing audience. That's why I want to tell you there is something you can do. You can ensure that the truth gets out there from my show. And by supporting me, you're supporting the Epoch Times and the independent journalism we have that is really bar none, this country's best hope in surviving this onslaught against our values and against our freedoms. Shockingly, most people don't realize that just about every major media company belongs to one of 6 huge corporations, all with their own agendas and all with their own demanding shareholders. Some people even think this is a good thing, but how can we ensure their reporting is free of bias? Well, we can't. This is why my show in the Epoch Times is so crucial. We're completely independent. Our only interest is in traditional journalism and reporting truthfully. The Epoch Times is the antidote. It's time to replace these prevalent narratives with the truth and get back to the basics: life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. All you have to do is subscribe to Epoch TV, Epoch Times, and you'll get so much more in return. With your subscription, you'll get access to hundreds of exclusive videos, over 30 channels, live shows, events, and also hard-hitting documentaries and films as well that are really changing the game. Click on the link in the description of this show and you're on your way. Thank you so much for watching me, and again, thank you for your support.
People from 160 countries illegally cross the U.S.-Mexico border and give themselves up to Border Patrol. But what about the ones who evade Border Patrol? These are known as the gotaways.
You can safely assume that anybody that went through the extra effort to avoid U.S. Border Patrol was not an asylum seeker by default.
It may not be today, it may not be tomorrow, but somewhere down the road, if somebody rapes and kills somebody, and we find out that they came through here on my watch, that's unacceptable.
These men had surrounded my house. They were banging on my back door. They were banging on my front door.
You can't understand it unless you're out here seeing it every day. 21 dead bodies on the property.
Code 3 response.
Is it wrong to ask people to come to your front door of your home? Then why would it be wrong to ask people to come to the front door of our nation?
Their primary goal is to circumvent the checkpoints, go undetected.
People that do not want to surrender, those are going to be the potential terrorists, the criminals, the real threat to the U.S.
We were hoping the federal government would step in and do something, but they didn't.
We have no clue who they are or where they're going. That's the scary part.